welcome to RetireMentorship, your mentor to and through retirement. I'm your host, Freeman, certified financial planner. In this 0th episode, I want to give an introduction to what RetireMentorship is, so that in all the subsequent episodes we can dive right into the topic without having to re-explain any of it. We will cover why we've created the podcast, what is the structure of the podcast, and who is the audience for the podcast. So first, why we have created the podcast. The point of this podcast is threefold. Number 1, to challenge and increase your knowledge of finances. Number 2, to deepen and grow your belief in financial planning. And 3, to inspire and encourage you to act on your plan. So let's look at those each in turn. 1, to challenge and increase your knowledge of finances. So personal finance is not a required class in most middle schools, high schools, or universities. When I was getting my degree, I was required to take calculus, geology, and 2 of either dance, art, or music appreciation. But personal finance, the skill we need almost every day, I'm not sure the course was even offered, let alone required. Financial illiteracy is a huge problem in the United States. Most of what we know about finances in the United States, we learned from the marketing departments of credit card companies, banks, and insurance companies. Perhaps we've learned from a finance guru whose broad rule of thumb we find hard to apply in our individual circumstances. Or perhaps we've learned from a financial services representative who said he was a, quote, financial advisor, end quote, and gave us some, quote, advice, end quote, but really learned everything he knows from the internal wholesalers at the insurance company he works for. With this podcast, I want to increase your knowledge about financial planning topics you really need to know, the ones that affect you directly. And I want to challenge the knowledge that you think you know, that you may have been told by erroneous sources. Why number 2, to deepen and grow your belief in financial planning. I may be biased as a certified financial planner, but I'm a big believer in financial planning. Let's clarify what I mean by financial planning. First, I don't mean the sale of financial products. There are a lot of people out there claiming to do financial planning, but in reality, they're simply selling financial products for the companies they represent. I believe good strategy, combined with solid belief and consistent behavior, trumps most financial products. Second, I don't mean a 120-page financial binder full of charts and graphs and tables claiming to be a plan. They are glorified paperweights and are rarely, if ever, read and rarely, if ever, come true. Dwight D. Eisenhower once said that planning is everything, the plan is nothing. The process of true financial planning is everything. The process of defining what one wants out of life, of determining where they are now, and demonstrating a path to get there is invaluable. But then the goal, or the circumstances, change, and the plan must change with it. A pilot flying from LA to New York always files a detailed flight plan before taking off. Always. How often does a flight go exactly according to plan? Never. They catch a tailwind and are ahead of schedule. The headwind slows them down. A storm brewing causes them to need to change course to skirt it. And with each change, the pilot recalculates and adjusts his flight plan. Only in doing so can he safely land at his destination reasonably close to the planned time of arrival. So does in life, so does in financial planning. By mentoring you each week, I hope to deepen and grow your belief in planning. As a sturdy oak has deep roots and from it grow strong limbs, so I hope your deep belief in financial planning will grow your success in life as it has mine. Why belief in planning instead of knowledge of planning? Episode 3 is going to go in depth on why belief is more important than knowledge. But in short, people act on what they believe, not on what they know. Which leads us to our third why. Number 3, to inspire and encourage you to act on your plan. We get so many messages these days about what we should and should not be doing. Sometimes we can distill it down to the things we know we should do. An individual financial plan built by a trusted financial planner who knows you personally and that adapts with your changing life over time can certainly help you definitively know what you should do, and hearing that same message over and over again may even help you believe that you should do it. But none of that matters unless you act on the knowledge and those beliefs. And sometimes we need a little encouragement and a little inspiration to help put us into action. My hope is that this podcast will help inspire and encourage you to act on the things you know and believe you should do. Turn should into did. And that's why we have created this podcast. So what is the structure of this podcast? Well, we'll have a new episode every Monday, and it's available in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And each episode will have a corresponding article on our website. The article will contain the transcript of the podcast, as well as pictures, resources, and links referenced in the pod. The web address for each episode will be www.RetireMentorship.com/ followed by the digit of the episode number you are listening to. So, as this is the 0th episode of the podcast, if you go to www.RetireMentorship.com/0, you will find the article for this episode. Again, it is always the digit 0, not the word 0. You can also find a link to the article in the show notes of each podcast. Some episodes will be interviews with resources that I believe might be helpful. Many episodes will simply be me sharing our beliefs and philosophy about financial planning and life. There are plenty of podcasts out there that are purely interviewing podcasts, where the host interviews various people about various topics, often with differing or even conflicting opinions. At some point, you need to decide what your belief system is and act on that system. And perhaps you may even need to exclude other conflicting beliefs that could distract you from your beliefs and plans. There's an inherent danger in pursuing only one belief to the exclusion of all others. That danger is that the belief turns out to be wrong, and that you bet all your chips on a falsehood. A putting all your eggs in one basket kind of danger. But I believe there's a difference between investing all your money in one fund and investing all your belief in one philosophy. I believe there's a greater danger in following multiple philosophies at once, a paralysis of analysis being one of those dangers. You absorb so much conflicting knowledge that you end up believing none of it and therefore do not act on any of it. Therefore, this podcast will remain unified in its philosophy and message rather than a convolution of conflicting beliefs. So who is the audience for this podcast? There are 3 potential audiences that I can see. 1, clients of my financial planning practice. 2, other people who are not clients of mine and clients of maybe another advisor or do-it-yourselfers looking for additional knowledge and wisdom. And 3, even other advisors. So 1, clients. This podcast is first and foremost for current clients of my financial planning practice. Now again, this is not part of my financial planning practice, and what you hear here is not financial advice. I'll give you that specifically to you in your situation. Again, this is not financial advice. This is not investing advice. And if you're one of my clients, thanks for listening. I appreciate you being here. We have only a few precious hours with you each year, which is nowhere near enough time that would take to combat all the conflicting messages you're being told or cement the deep truths that we tell you in person. We also do not have the capacity to spend more time with you to teach you all of this, and nor do you have the time to come into our office and learn it. We both know you're too busy for that. So my hope is that by putting this into a form that you can listen to on your own time, on the drive to or from work or wherever, that we can teach you and reinforce all year the items that we talk about in person once or twice a year. Most of you realize that other people you care about could use our assistance, and we know that you often refer our financial planning practice to those people. However, they often do not act on those referrals because they don't know us from Adam. This podcast becomes an easy recommendation for them to start listening and gaining valuable insight. Eventually, they may reach out to us when they feel comfortable with our philosophy. Or you could be others. Clients not of ours, clients of another advisor, or do-it-yourselfers. Welcome. You don't need to be a client to listen. Hopefully the why of this podcast mentioned above will still be helpful to you. You will hear me mention over and over throughout this podcast that you should be working with a financial planner who knows and cares about you and can be trusted to give you the right advice so that you can make the right decisions. I hope that you have that now. And if not, let me be the first to encourage you to reach out to us or someone else you know is trustworthy and begin working on your financial plan. If you're still unsure if we are trustworthy, keep listening, and it will become apparent to you one way or another. And thirdly, I know that other advisors could listen to this podcast. I happen to have an abundance mentality when it comes to clients and true financial planners. There's so many people out there that need good advice and planning and are not nearly enough true advisors. If you are a true financial planner or investment advisor, keep up the good work. You're welcome to listen, and I hope you gain insights to use with your clients. If you're an advisor who deep down knows that you're truly a financial services rep or insurance salesperson, then welcome as well. Hopefully this encourages you and inspires you to become a true financial advisor. The world could use less financial sales and more financial advice. And lastly, what this podcast is not. This podcast is not meant to be financial advice or investment advice, whether direct or indirect. Anyone listening to this should have their own investment plan and asset allocation based on their unique situation, goals, and time horizon. You should have developed that plan with a competent investment advisor or financial planner and should not get specific investment advice from this podcast or any other. This is also not legal or tax advice. I'm not licensed to practice law, and I wouldn't give tax advice to you unless I knew your specific situation. Consult with your tax professional and attorney for tax and legal advice for your situation. This podcast is to help you think about financial matters more deeply and to give you insights into asking the right questions to us or your current financial advisor. A quick nuance to note: I'll often speak generally about a person as an investor or client or other. It's quite tedious to always say he or she or his or her, so I'll often just pick one. One story might be about a her, and the next might be about a he. Most could apply to either. Thanks for listening. I hope this has been helpful as to what to expect. We have published episodes already, and many more in production, and many more planned besides. Clients, we encourage you to listen to all episodes that are published, as well as the new ones that come out on Mondays. I hope you have a great day. And remember, it doesn't matter what you know, it only matters what you believe and do. This podcast is educational only and is not intended to be investment, legal, or tax advice or recommendations, whether direct or incidental. Again, this is not investment advice. Consult your financial, tax, and legal professionals for specific advice related to your specific situation. Never take investment advice from someone who doesn't know you and your specific situation. All opinions expressed in this podcast are the opinions of the speakers expressing them. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. RetireMentorship is not affiliated with or controlled by any registered investment advisor, broker-dealer, or other financial services company.